hope that your morning and your day is filled, and your life is filled with love, because that's all that matters, isn't it? It's all that matters. So we're going to love one another. That's why we're here at Harmony Spiritual Center, to remember, to remind ourselves of what's important, to see the faces of love, to be surrounded by love, to go out filled with love. And so we know what it looks like. We know what it feels like. We know how to activate it. No matter what is going on in our lives, we know what is important, and that is to love one another. So that's what we do here. We just remind each other. We are what I call Pibbs, Mr. Pibbs. We are people that we know for one another. We know the truth for one another. We are partners in believing, partners in knowing the truth. And so we choose every single day, every single moment. We can choose. We can choose what we're going to think. We can choose how we're going to feel. We can choose how we're going to show up. So we choose it. We know this. We are at choice all the time. All the time, that's what we do. That's what we know for sure. That we are, you are, everyone you see, everyone you are around, everyone that you meet, no matter how they're showing up, the truth of them, the truth of you, is that we are all individualized expressions of the one love. And so we can see that in everyone, no matter how they're showing up, no matter how difficult their day may have been. We don't know. We don't know what they're going through, but we know who we are. And we can show up and offer love all the time. So the last time, this is the beginning of the year, so I want to talk about living in divine possibility, about vision, about dreams, about how we want to set this coming year. That's what our talks in January are all about. And so last week we talked about how we have to write the vision down. You can't just be thinking about it in your head, because what happens? If I have a thought, I'm telling you, I have to write it down. Because another thought comes so quickly, I can't remember what the last thought was. So we can't just be thinking about it. We have to write it down. There's something about writing it down that writes it on your heart, that writes it on your mind, that sets the intention, and that lets the universe know that you have an intention, and this is what you want. And so sends to you your way, everything that you need to have that vision come true. So we just talked about the necessity, if you want your life to be, and you'll think about this. This is what, to me, this is what January is all about. We get to think about, we get to experiment with, think about what happened last year, think about things we want to keep, things we want to change, and write it on our hearts. How do we want to show up this year? How do we want to continue to show up? What do we want to let go of? What do we want to release? Who do we want to draw in? Who didn't we tell how much they meant to us? All those things. That's what we get to do at the beginning of the year. So I love this so much. There's so much going on. So today I want to talk about, from Scripture, Matthew 19:26. He said, with God, which is what you are, all things are possible. All things are possible. So when we talk about divine possibility, we're talking about the reality of God in you, as you, in and through your life. That is the reality. Divine possibility is your reality. That's what we're going to do. So the truth is, we always ask ourselves, and I talk to myself too. So everything I'm telling you, I tell myself as well. That we think about our vision, our dream, and part of the reason that we don't want to write it down makes it too real. It makes it very real. And the question comes to our mind, how is this going to happen? Particularly if you write a big vision, something we haven't done. So many of you are nodding, you know what a big vision looks like, and you're like, what is that going to happen? I don't even know how this vision came, let alone how it's going to turn out. So, so that's a problem, right? We have a vision, we have an idea, we want this to happen, we know it's big, and then we get concerned about the how. So I tell you this all the time, I'm going to tell you again. If you don't remember, just see my face up here telling you, let that go. The how is none of your business. Do you understand that? I know it seems crazy, but that is the truth. The how is none of your business. All that is your business is claiming the what. Claiming the what. And when you are in a relationship with Spirit, you hear all the things that show up that don't seem connected, but that actually are. So the how is coming your way. And if you're dreaming something big, I want to go to Europe and sing on a big stage. Well, I don't know anybody in Europe. What big stage are we talking about, right? I mean, if that was my vision, it's not, but let's just say if it was, then that would be something I would begin to worry about. How is that going to happen? Who do I know in Europe? Nope. Write it down. I see myself in a year from now. You put the date on it. I will be on the stage. I'll be singing, and I'll have a great big audience, and I'll be getting paid a lot of money. Don't worry about that. That's not my vision. I'm not going anywhere. But this is where I want to be. But if I said that, that's what you write it out. And then something happens. A friend of yours from Tennessee, nowhere near Europe, calls and said, hey, I've got a friend and loves your voice and wants you to record a song. She lives in Paris, and we're going to do this overseas. Oh, okay, great. So there's a connection to something overseas. You understand? It just begins to happen. It comes seemingly out of nowhere, but that's how it happens. So you just don't need to worry about the how. And I know that seems strange for us because, we're on this physical planet. We want to know, well, how is this next thing going to happen? But just release that and write down the vision and talk with God every single day and listen to the voice of God in you, however you hear that, however it works for you, and do what God is telling you. And a lot of times God, and it's okay, a lot of times God will tell me to do something, and I will say, I'm sorry, how's that going to work out? What are you talking about? And His Spirit said, do you want this thing or not? This is the relationship I have with God. We argue back and forth. Actually, I'm arguing, and He's just trying to be reasonable. so, how's that going to work? Do you want to go or not? Yes. Then do what I'm telling you. Don't worry about that. Just do this. Do this one step. You don't need the 10 that comes behind that. You're not even doing this one, so why don't I tell you the 10? Do the one, right? Do what I'm telling you. So I love to tell you guys stories. I'll tell you that story. And I'll tell you some stories about me, traveling and some different stuff where I'm just being a knucklehead and not listening to Spirit, but still praying. And you can be a knucklehead and pray at the same time. It's all right. And so all of you know, well, many of you know, so you all in this room know now, anybody who's listening, that I retired as a peace officer. I was a peace officer in California. And so when I first went for the job, I didn't know what I was applying for. They came on our college campus, the state of California, and they were looking for people to take the tests and work for them. And so I always take tests. I'm like, I don't know what this is, I'm just going to take a test. And so I went in the room, I took the test, I aced it. I didn't know I aced it at the time, but I did. And so they rank you when you take a test for any state. I don't know if it's any, but certainly in California, they rank you. You ranked it rated number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And so when they're looking for work for people to fill a job, they'll call everybody that was in rank number 1 and tell you about the job and if you want to interview, blah, blah. So they called me up and said, hey, we have a job at Nellis, I'll never forget this, Nellis School for Boys. Yeah, Nellis, that was somebody's name. Nellis School for Boys. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go and interview for this thing. In my mind, I just saw a little school. I had this whole thing in my head, whole little school, and I'd be in the office, and little kids would come in and they'd lost their lunch money, or they needed a pencil or a pen or whatever, and I'd just be in there, help them. So I showed up and I had my little, at the time I was wearing clogs and I had a little mini skirt on. Yeah. Hello. So I walked up to the place and the sign out front said, we do not recognize hostages. Yeah. And I said, hostages? What kind of kids are these? So anyway, so I go in and I'm looking for the guy that wanted to interview me. And I walked in, he looked at me, and I'm sitting down, he goes, you know what kind of place this is, right? You know what this is? And I said, oh, sure, absolutely, of course. I don't know anything. I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, okay, all right, because these kids they're juvenile delinquents. This is like a jail. Oh, okay, yes, of course, I knew that. Yes. So, anyway, so they hired me. And I worked it, I loved it, I got to know the kids and got to know the boys, and I ended up creating a position called the grievance clerk, because the kids had grievances. They had things that were happening, they had nobody to talk to, so I was a grievance person. They could come and write and talk to me. Anyway, I found out, making a long story longer, I found how I became a peace officer is I was working with them. There was another test that came up. Here's the thing. Everybody was telling me, everybody would come to my office, all the staff would say, you don't want to take that. You don't want to take that test. You don't take that job. That's not for you. I'm like, what do you mean? You're doing it. What makes you think I can't do it? What are you talking about? And no. It's over. It's called a place called YTS, a youth training school. And so there's a lot of kids over there. It's not for you. You can't do it. Well, you know what that did, didn't you? Really? Okay. So I took the test. Of course, I passed it. And they asked me to start working there, and I did. And my first job was up in the tower. There was a tower that you had to be up. Have you seen the prison thing where there's a tower? That's where I worked. I worked in a tower, and the lights. And of course, I was sleeping because it was midnight to 6 in the morning, so I was from my sleep. But my point is this: I knew what I wanted to do. It doesn't matter what other people think. Because everyone, how many of you have had an opinion in your life? How many of you shared that opinion with someone who didn't ask you to share it? Yes, indeed. If you're a parent, you've always done it. I'll tell you right now, I still do it with my kids. No, this is my favorite saying, you cannot answer a question that isn't being asked. Yep. You can try to answer it, but nobody's listening to you. Because they didn't ask you for your opinion. I didn't ask these people for my opinion. How does anybody know what you're capable of? Do you even know what all you're capable of? I didn't really know all that I was capable of, but here's what I did know. That if I talked with God and I said I wanted to do this, it was done. I didn't know how. I just kept saying yes, because I'd already spoken with God about it. I needed a better job. I needed a job with security. I didn't care about these, I don't care what it was. I knew that God was going to work it out for me, and I loved this job. I loved the kids. It turned out that I was living in Compton at the time. I had moved from Colorado to Compton. I didn't know anything about Compton. I didn't know anything about gangs. I didn't know anything. But I lived right across the street from a place they called the Red House. The Red House, because it was a halfway house for the kids. I can't tell you how many of those kids babysat for me, came to my wedding. I knew all of these kids. So when I finally started working out in this place, youth training school, I knew most of the kids in there because they were my neighbors. Okay? So there's nothing to be afraid of. They're kids. Who cares? But my point is this: know thyself. Other people will have opinions about what they believe you can or cannot do. What do they know about what's possible for you? What do they know about what's possible for you and God together? They don't know anything. They only know their limitations. They don't know yours. So don't let others limit you. Not when God says you can do it. Not when you said to Spirit, this is what I want. Show me the how. And don't be asking questions. You know what? Let me just back that up, because I always ask questions. You ask God what you want. God tells you. You can go ahead and argue, but just do what he's telling you anyway. When you finish arguing, if you're the type that argues, just do what Spirit's telling you, even though you don't understand where it's going to lead. You don't need to, because you've already asked, and Spirit said yes. That is all. It's not going to be a straight path. Never is. Never is. It goes this way, and then that way, and doesn't look like you're making any progress at all. But you are. So just do what God is telling you. So that was the story about that. And the other one I wanted to share with you, to make the point that I'm talking about, that was how I became a peace officer, and I retired. I did that my whole grown-up life. I loved it. And it was always around these kids like the kids that I lived around. And I didn't even know anything about that before I went. But that's what God does. So you don't need to know what you think you need to know. You don't. The other story I want to tell you is one that's close to home. You all know that it's coming up on 2 years. For Mother's Day this year, it's coming up on 2 years. when my beloved dog passed away. And Spike. I've never had a dog in my life. I've never had a dog. I'm a cat person. But my mother passed away, that was her dog, and I ended up getting the dog, and I loved him. And then he passed away, got very ill and old, and he passed away. And I had no animals. And I was by myself, and I wanted some animal. I wanted an animal. And I said, I don't want a dog. I'm not a dog person. I want a cat. So I was at TCC, South Campus, and a lady that I know there, she said her cat had litter, had lots of cats. And could I take a cat? And I thought, okay, Spirit, is this mine to do? Because I was talking about cats, and now this is coming up, should I take it? And Spirit said, yes, all right, because now, you're going to have to help me, with babysitters, because when I'm out of town, I'm not going to leave the cats alone. No, go ahead and get the cats. Yeah. So I got 2 cats, brought them home. And I thought, okay, my baby sister, she can watch the cats, and she watched Spike. She can watch the cats. So I called her up and I said, hey, I've got 2 cats. She goes, cats? Oh, I can't stand cats. What? And my husband's allergic. I don't know. Oh, that's not gonna work. All right then, thanks. Then I called my oldest sister and I said, hey, and I got a couple of cats, and I'm excited, about the cats. And, she goes, oh, cats, I'm scared of cats. What are you talking about? Scared of cats? And so then I hung up, and I thought, okay, well, those are the 2 I had in my mind. Spirit, who's gonna watch these cats? And he said, Jim. And I said, oh, Jim, okay, great, perfect. Because Miranda had just passed away, and I thought that'd be nice. He could just watch my cats, and I'll be, And so that worked out. And I can't remember where I went, but I took the cats over, and they had a great time. He bought them some gifts they're still playing with. Had a great time. And then he said, I'm moving, and I can't have cats. What's happening right now? So I said, all right, Spirit, what's happening? You said I could get these cats. And I wouldn't have to be worried if I was going out of town. And everyone you told me to talk to, it worked for a second, but it ain't working now. Who is going to watch these cats? I said, Terry and David. Really? Terry and David? All right, because they got cats. I don't know how that's going to work out, but okay. I'm going to ask them. They're fabulous. They're fabulous. I went out of town for 2 weeks. My cats didn't even know I was gone. Look at that. They come over, the cats are running all over them like they're long-lost parents. I love it. And this is what I'm going to do. And if anything happens, I'll just what? Ask Spirit. Because Spirit said, this is my belief, my trust. Spirit said, get the cats. You can get them. All right? Because you know what my concerns are? Yes. I'll let you know. I'll tell you who. Well, I hadn't even thought of Terry and David because they already have a lot that they're doing. I didn't think about them. But he popped them in the head. I didn't argue. I normally do. But everything had already turned out really well. So I said, all right, I'm going to talk. And it's just been lovely. Thank you, too, so much for saying yes to me and to Spirit. And that's what it goes. So my point is the same point I've been making, and I always make. You just set the vision. You say what you want. Your job is only to say what you want. That is your job. Be clear. We have a difficult time being clear because we're always concerned about the how is that going to work out. Never your business. Believe me, it's never your business. And if you decide to do something and you've claimed the what, but it hasn't showed up yet, just I'm your partner in believing. Just call me up. PJ, that's what you said. What's happening? And I'll be with you. And we will see it unfold. So I'm telling you, I know. If you can't believe, I will believe for you and with you. My belief is strong. So is yours. Sometimes you just need somebody to walk with you. And that's what I'll do. That's what we all do with each other. I'll call up people all the time. Pat, Glenn, Barbara, Bill. I'll call you guys up. Go, hey. Yeah, you already know, PJ. You already know. Yes, I do. Thank you for reminding me. That's what we do here. We remind each other of the truth. You are an individualized expression. God loves you. God is full of possibility. Peter walked on water. Was it Peter who walked on water? Anybody know the Bible? I think it was. He walked on water because he believed in the possibility. Who the heck could think you could walk on water? But he walked on water and he fell as soon as he kept his eyes off of God. He fell in the water, but as soon as he put his eyes back on, he was back up. Just keep your eye on the truth of your life and the truth of possibilities. That's what we do. All things are possible. So what I would like for you to do, I have some directives, some to-dos. This week, say it out loud, just one idea of what is possible, something you want, that you think is an impossible dream. Just say it out loud, and then write it down. Say it out loud, and write it down. Don't think about how. Think about the what, okay? And then we're going to talk in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to ask you, how's it going? I'm not going to ask you what it is, because that's your business. But how's it going? I already know the answer to that. If you say it and write it down, I know the answer. But we'll know the answer together. You don't need to trust me. Trust yourself and trust God. That's all you need to do. I'll leave you with this. All things are possible for those who believe and trust in God. Germany Kent, a young black woman, she said, the greatest setback can lead you to your greatest breakthrough. Trust and believe that all things are working together for your good, because it is. So it is.